Up to Shags. He can do it, I guess. So welcome everybody to the Sacramento Story Guild's swap. And today Ed Lewis is going to be our host. I just got you all started on the web here on Zoom. So Ed, I just want to remind everybody that if they could please keep their themselves on mute while someone else is talking, that would be terrific. Otherwise, the sound is going to interfere with what they're saying in their story. So we have
Andrew, you can mute everybody.
Yes, I know. I can't mute everybody, and I'll probably do that. So if you are muted and you want to speak, just wave at me or something.
I'm not getting any sound.
Who's saying
Laura,
that?
you're not getting any sound?
You're gonna have to turn up your volume.
Why you're not? You're not on mute or anything.
You'll need to either turn up your volume, or well, she can't. She's not hearing us if she has no sound. So.
Oh, let me try to chat with her, Lynn. Or can you do that, Shag?
Well, let me try.
Trying to chat with her. Okay. Other than that, I think we're ready to go, Ed. If you want to start introducing people.
Okay. All right. Well, we're glad that all of you could come on board for our monthly guild meeting. We will have 6-7 storytellers today. And our first storyteller is a good friend of mine. She's been telling stories for 30 years, and her repertoire goes from folk and fairy tales to personal stories. And she has a focus on peace and justice issues. So she's taken storytelling classes. She's performed at all kinds of different places. And she also performs with children, and she conducts workshops herself. So please welcome Linda Kennedy as our first storyteller of the day.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Jimmy cracked corn and I don't care. Jimmy cracked corn and I, well, you know, down in that place and in that time when the air was so thick in the summer, you could cut it with a butter knife. You know, down in that place and in that time when the fireflies outnumbered the stars twinkling in the night, it was that time that Mr. Stribling was the wealthiest man in the county. Mr. Stribling made his money by having the biggest pecan nut farm in that end of the state, but he wasn't happy with just a little bit of a fortune, always looking a way to make more money. So down in the bottomland where trees would not grow, he built little shacks and rented them out to very poor people. One day he discovered, looking at his books, that a family had not paid their rent, so he went to see them. When he got there, the mother and father were gone, but the little boy, 8 years old, sitting in the shade of a cornstalk, was there by himself. Mr. Stribling said, "Hey, young fella, where's your mom and your dad? What are they doing?" The boy didn't answer. "I'm talking to you, and your parents would not like to hear you were rude to the landlord." And at that, the little boy stood up, but with a twinkle in his eye, he said, "Well, my mother has gone to sell the wind so she could buy the moon. And my father has gone to cut down live things so he can plant dead ones." Mr. Stribling was not amused. He said, "Oh, with all this jibber jabber, tell me where they are. What are they doing?" And the little boy again said, "My mother has gone to sell the wind and to buy the moon. And my father has gone to cut down dead live things so he can plant dead ones. And if you got that right, you're better than I am." And so Mr. Stribling was not amused again. And he said, "You know, that is nothing but jibber jabber. It is nothing but a silly riddle. And I like a riddle as much as anybody. But I'm going to tell you this, little boy. I came today to collect the rent your parents owe me. But if you tell me what that riddle is all about, I will forgive their debt." And the little boy said, do you really mean that, Mr. Stribling? Do I have your word? And Mr. Stribling said, of course you have my word. With the heavens above and the earth below as my witness, you have my word. The little boy thought for a moment. Mr. Stribling, a witness can't be like the heavens above and the earth below. A witness is alive. It's someone who can speak at court. Again, Mr. Stribling was not amused. And while he was sitting there trying to figure out how to not be outsmarted by an 8-year-old, he saw a blue-tailed fly flying around in the yard. He watched that blue-tailed fly. He watched it and he watched it until he saw it land on a ragged piece of screen on the front door. He went over and he snatched up that blue-tailed fly and cupped it in his hands. And he said, little boy, come see what I have. And the little boy looked inside and he said, Mr. Stribling, you've caught yourself a blue-tailed fly. I have, and it's alive, is it not? Yes, then it can be our witness, can it not? Well, the little boy was caught. He did want his parents to not have to pay the rent if Mr. Stribling had promised that. So he said, yes, the blue-tailed fly can be our witness. Now, okay, little boy, now tell me where your parents are. No more jibber jabber, no more of that riddle. And the little boy said, okay. My mother has gone to the market to sell the beautiful fans that she has woven out of the dried corn shucks. And she's going to use that money to buy oil for our lamps so we can see at night. Isn't that just like selling the wind to buy the moon? And my father, he has gone to work for a farmer down the road and who has hired him to cut down a long row of trees so that he can cut them into boards and they can build a fence. Isn't that like cutting down live things to plant the dead ones? Aha, thought Mr. Stribling, very clever little boy. Okay, so knowing that the parents were working and they would have money, he said, I will come by tonight to finalize the deal. Well, that night the little boy was asleep, but he awoke to very loud argument. He heard Mr. Stribling say, I know you were working today. I know you have money. And if you don't pay me the rent you owe me, then you are going to be thrown out in that red dirt road tomorrow with all of your belongings. The little boy sprung from the bed and he ran to his father. He said, you do not have to pay him. Your debt was forgiven today. Mr. Stribling came and said if I told him the answer to my riddles, he would forgive our debt. The father said, Mr. Stribling, my son does not fib. And Mr. Stribling said, but I wasn't here today. I don't know what he's talking about. And then the father said, I will see you tomorrow at the courthouse. The next day, the blacksmith saw Mr. Stribling coming down the road. He saw the family coming up the road. And he took off his black leather apron and he hung it up on the nail and he got down his judge robe. He went to the front of his shop and he turned the blacksmith sign around where it said courthouse. And when the people arrived, he showed them the bench where to sit down. He said, I'm ready to listen. Mr. Stribling made his case that he was a fine citizen of the county. He rented nice little houses to the poor people, and these people owed him rent, and that he wanted them to pay because he knew they had made some money. The little boy jumped up and he said, but Mr. Stribling came to my house yesterday and I told him a riddle. And he said, if I told him the answer to the riddle, he would forgive our debt. So we don't owe him anything. And Mr. Stribling said, I was never there. I did not talk to you. And the judge said to the little boy, Mr. Stribling is a fine, fine, fine citizen of the county. And I hear what you're saying, and you're such a nice child, but without a witness. Oh, but there was a witness, said the little boy. There was a witness. There was a blue-tailed fly. The judge said, oh my goodness, what kind of nonsense are you bringing into my courthouse? A blue-tailed fly cannot be a witness. And the little boy said, but there was a blue-tailed fly, and it came right into the yard, and it buzzed around and around and around until it landed right on the end of Mr. Stribling's nose. And Mr. Stribling jumped up off his bench and he said, "You know that is not the truth. You know it didn't land on my nose. You know it landed on the door." And as soon as he said that, he'd been caught in his lie. And the parents began to laugh. The judge began to laugh. And even Mr. Stribling had to admit that he had been caught. The judge said, "I'm not sure what conversation took place yesterday at your house, but I am convinced that there was a conversation and the debt is forgiven. All of you go home." And so they left, and the judge took off his robe, hung it back up on that hook. He got down that leather apron, he put it on. He went and he changed the courthouse sign around where it said blacksmith. He got his bellows and started working on the flame so he could start his day's work. And then he started to sing. "They'll lay me under a pecan tree. My epitaph will be there to see. Beneath this stone I'm forced to lie, the victim of the blue-tail fly." Thank you.
Yay!
Very
That
nice.
was great. I laughed when the guy got caught.
Yep. Caught himself in his own lie. That's a Vietnam, I'll take a second here. That's a Vietnamese folk tale called The Fly. And it's in the Favorite Stories from Around the World by Joanna Cole. First story I ever learned to tell 30 some years ago. Later in a workshop, we were asked to take a folk tale, and because they all have human condition and similarities in all continents, to change its location. And I took it from Vietnam and put it in the Deep South.
No.
And I use terms from my own personal experience in the story. So it's, I like telling that.
Yeah, that was fabulous.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I told that story live on KVMR one night. That's Nevada City Community Radio. And when I got home, I asked my husband, "Did you listen?" He goes, "Yep, but you left something out." And I said, "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." "No, I didn't." "What did I leave out?" He said, "Well, when you practiced last night, you said that blacksmith turned the sign around from blacksmith to courthouse and courthouse to blacksmith, and you didn't say it tonight." And I said, "Well, Tom, that's because he did that last night. Had he done it tonight, I would have told you."
Excellent. I'll just remind everybody, if anybody wants to provide any feedback to Linda, go ahead and type a message in the chat box, and she'll get that if you send it to her personally on that. She'll get that. So for now, our wonderful Ed Lewis, president of the Sacramento Storytellers Guild, is up to give his story. And Ed is a liar supreme. He's won a number of different liars contests. He went to school at Dominican College back in 1997. So it was a community college back then in storytelling. It's really when he began his career. He's been a member of the Guild for roughly 20 years. And he's told stories all throughout California and all over the world, actually. And he specializes in children's stories as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing his story. So Ed, let us have it.
All right. So you just heard that I am and I won a few liars contests. But this story, I want you to understand that this is a true story, or at least mostly true. So back in the ancient time of 1980, I was teaching in Los Angeles. So I had a summer vacation, and every summer I would travel somewhere interesting for 3 months. And I had heard about this festival called the Gooseberry Festival in Labrador, which is on the far eastern edge of Canada. So I planned a driving trip in my Datsun B210 from Los Angeles all the way to Labrador via a couple ferry rides. On that trip, I did not get on a freeway crossing the entire United States. I just took back roads. The trip was very fascinating. And that's a story for another time, but I did end up at the Gooseberry Festival. From Nova Scotia in Canada, you take a ferry, a 3-hour ferry up to Newfoundland, and then you take a 1-hour ferry over to Labrador, and then you drive 23 miles on a dirt road up to the very end of the road where there's a Native American reservation and where they had the Gooseberry Festival. And my whole plan was to have gooseberry pie, and that's what I did. So I achieved my goal. But the story I'm going to tell you about is my first stop on the journey. I stopped in the Ozarks of Missouri, and I met 2 old Army buddies, Travis and Loy, and we had a plan to go down the 11-Point River in the Missouri Ozarks down into the Arkansas Ozarks, canoeing. And I was very excited about this because they were expert canoeists. Travis had grown up in upstate Michigan on lakes and rivers, and Loy had grown up in Illinois, and they had canoed all their lives. And like I said, they won competitions. So I knew I had never canoed, but I had been on lots of boats throughout my life. In the San Juan Islands, as a child, my parents had a boat and we would go out every weekend. But I'd sailed, but I'd never been on a canoe. So this is going to be a great experience for me. So I met them, we camped out for the night, and then in the morning, we drove down to the river in the Missouri Ozarks. And Travis and I were going to do the first leg of the trip. And then Loy was going to drive the truck around into the Arkansas Ozarks and meet us at this designated site. And we would camp out for the night. And then Loy and Travis would go on the more difficult part of the river down to a friend's house, and we would have a great barbecue, and I would drive the truck down to their house and wait for them at Loy's friend's house. So Loy got the canoe and was getting it ready, and Travis and I were getting our gear, and Loy's down at the river. We are up at the truck, and all of a sudden I hear, "Help, help." And we run down to the river, and there's Loy in the water swimming after the canoe that's heading down the river. Now, we did get the canoe and got it back up, and I had a few more doubts in my mind about their particular skill, but I was committed to doing this. So we got in the canoe. Travis is in back where he can control, and I'm in the front. And Travis says, when we get into a rapid, I'm just going to be screaming, power left or power right. And you just got to dig your oar in. Just listen to what I say, that's all. So we got a rhythm going, and we went around the first corner of the river, the first bend of the river. And Travis looks at me and he went, I didn't realize this rapid was here. I thought it was on the lower part. This is going to be difficult. Get through it. Just do what I say. So we come up into the rapid, and it is loud. There's huge boulders. I think we're going to crash every second. And Travis yells out, power left. So I dug my oar in and powered. The only problem was he had forgot to tell me that you have to sit up straight in the canoe when you do that. I dug down and bent way over, and the canoe went like this, and like this, and like this. All our gear fell out. Travis did keep us afloat. We got through the rapid. We had to get all our gear, and we spent, an hour getting our gear and getting it all dried out as much as we could. But then we continued down the river. We stopped at some fishing holes. The Ozarks are just gorgeous. Although I had thought of that movie back about the Ozarks. I had that in the back of my mind, but that it might not be quite as safe as they seemed to think it was. But there were families out there. There were kids on rope swings jumping off into the lake. We stopped and fished. We swam. We caught nice bass, we cooked it up, had a great trip all the way down. And about 6 o'clock, we got down to this ridge where we were supposed to meet Loy, and there was Loy. And he said, I found this great plateau. It's about a quarter of a mile hike. We'll pull up the canoe, tie it off, and spend the night, and then we'll continue on the next day. So we did that. We went up, camped out. We had fish. We cooked up a nice meal, had some rice, had some vegetables. And that night, I saw my first meteorite shower. I'd never seen one before. It just looked like stars were shooting all over the heavens. It was unbelievable. The next day, Boy and Travis take off, and they gave me directions to get to their buddy's house. I drove down there. I saw him, and he went, you know, I do have to go to work. And it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. Do you fish? I went, sure. I grew up fishing. I said, well, you know, there's bass up the river here, and I'll give you my little bass fishing boat, and I'll point you out a few spots to go and try to get some bass, because we're going to have a big feast. A lot of people are coming over to see Ken and Travis and you. So no problem. So I went up the river and I started fishing, and within 1 hour, I had caught 8 bass. They were good sized bass, and I'd used up all my bait. And I wasn't done. I mean, I had quite a few more hours before anyone was going to come. Now, some of you know me, and many of you don't, though, and I'm a very clever kind of guy. So I figured I'm going to find some bait. I'm going to look around, and I saw this frog sitting on a rock. And I went, I'm going to give me that frog. I reached over, got the boat a little closer, but the frog wasn't moving, and I couldn't quite figure out why it wasn't moving until I saw that it was in the mouth of a cottonmouth snake, one of the most deadly poisonous snakes in the Ozarks. But I'm going to get that frog. And I know a lot about snakes. I used up in the San Juan Islands, there were snakes all over. There weren't poisonous ones, but there are a lot of snakes we used to mess around with. And I'll give you a little tip. If you ever just want to grab onto a snake, if you get it by the jaw, and if you're strong enough, you can hold on, it can't bite you. So that was the plan. I grabbed onto that snake, I whipped out the frog, I threw it in my bait bucket, and the plan was just to flip that snake off into the river. But I hadn't really thought this through well enough. The snake started going like this all over, close to my face. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I am a clever kind of guy. So I looked down at my boat, and then the light bulb went off. And I went, okay, this is it. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I unscrewed the lid. I took out my 5th of Jack Daniels that I always carry around with me, and I poured a shot right down the mouth of that cottonmouth snake. And that snake, its eyes just roll back in its head, and it's got limp. And it had this really funny little grin on its face. And I just dropped it into the river. I fished some more, caught up that frog, fished, and I got bass. I mean, I don't even remember how many. There were just so many. But I did run out of bait pretty quickly because, you know, I'm the expert fisherman. Well, all of a sudden, when I'm looking around for frogs, and I feel something tapping my leg, and I look down, and there is that cottonmouth snake with a big old bullfrog in its mouth. And it looks at me, and it looks down at that 5th of Jack Daniels. It took me a minute because I am creative, but I'm kind of slow on the uptake. And it looked at me again, gave me a little nudge, and looked at that 5th of Jack Daniels, and I went, all right. Now I know what you want. So it actually just spit that frog right into the bait bucket, but I do want to tell you, do not trust a snake. So I grabbed that snake, I held it firm, although it wasn't doing anything. And as a reward, I just gave it 2 shots. And that snake just had this greatest grin. And it just kind of moved around like this, and I dropped it into the water, cut up that frog, you know, I probably had 25, 30 bass by the time I got back to their house. We had a great feast. It was a fun party. Appalachian folks, mountain folks in the Ozarks really know how to party. So we had a great time. Now, I finished my trip, as I told you, and there's many adventures in that. But then I came back to Los Angeles where I was teaching, and I eventually moved to Davis. And those of you who live around here probably know that in Rio Vista, they have a fishing contest every year, and a bass fishing contest in September. And the person who catches the largest bass wins $500, and you get your name on a plaque. Well, I've entered that every year since I moved up here in '84, and it was 1990, and I hadn't even come close to winning. But this year I knew about frogs, so I put up some frogs and I brought me some frog bait, and we had an hour left to go, and I had caught a 18-pound bass, and that was announced that it was the largest one so far. Then about a half hour later, a woman came on and said that this woman had caught a 20-pound bass. And that's when the magic happened. I was kind of getting ready to give up. And you're going to find this part hard to believe, but I felt this little nibbling right down on my leg. And I looked down, and there is that cottonmouth snake. Now, it is hard to believe because, you know, the Ozarks, that snake had to go through the rivers, up over the Rockies, through Tahoe, the mountains, the Sierras, come on down the Sacramento River. I mean, it was quite a journey. Of course, I knew what to do. I just spit the frog right in the bait. I was getting ready to give it a little shot. Jack Daniels that I always carry around. Right up next to it came this beautiful female cottonmouth snake. She had these eyelashes that came up, curled up, and on the end of each one was the scale of a bass. And right next to her came two twin toddlers. They must have been 6 months old. They had little frogs in their mouth, and very cute. They put them in there. Well, of course, I just took my fifth and poured it right in the container I had, and they came up, had a good time. Now, before you judge those snakes, you don't know whether it's okay for toddler snakes to drink Jack Daniels. It might be an acceptable practice, and it might be a very healthy thing. So please don't judge the parents too harshly. Well, I caught a 22-pound bass. I won that contest. And if you don't believe me, you go down to Rio Vista and you look at the plaque and you'll see 1990 Ed Lewis, 22-pound bass. And if you ever want to go fishing with me, I can always get the best bait you can imagine. And all you have to do is bring along a fifth of Jack Daniels. Thank you.
Very good. Very good, Ed. I got my Jack Daniels in the closet here. I'll have to bring it up to you next time. That was terrific.
Okay, well, our next storyteller is Joyce Orman. And she has been a guild member from the beginning, and that's probably 30 years or so. She is told in lots of different venues. She is our ancient one. We just celebrated her 80th birthday not too long ago at her house. She has a beautiful house with a nice pool and some stories, interesting stories about growing up in West Sac. So please welcome Joyce Orman.
I think you're on mute, Joyce.
Okay, I just unmuted. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I have to apologize to Andy because this is a story that I'm going to tell that's never been told before, but we've been doing some writing with a little group of storytellers, and the topic was money. And I was supposed to write about money. Well, you know, I thought, and I thought, wow, when was money really exciting? And then I had an idea. I grew up with a mother who loved to gamble. Gamble to her was, oh, so exciting. And so every summer in August, when the state fair was on Stockton Boulevard at the old fairgrounds and the horses were running, on her days off, she would get reserved seats in the grandstand. My Aunt Doodle, who also loved horse racing, would come also on my mom's days off, and we would all go to the races. My dad, my mom, my Aunt Doodle, my Uncle Adrian, my Aunt Pug, and me. I don't remember when it started, but I remember the earliest memory, I used to get a quarter from my dad, and I used to bet on my horse with my dad for a quarter. Well, over the years, it got to be more. And about age 10, I think he gave me $5. And then I could bet real money on the horses. And as they walked by, I'd look at them and I'd say to myself, are you going to win? Are you going to win? And those horses would talk to me. Well, they wouldn't really talk. They just sort of give me the eye that they were going to win. Or sometimes nobody would answer me. But I relied on that. And I bet on the horses. Now, of course, I was too young. 21 years old was the legal limit to vote. I mean, to bet. So somebody would always bet for me, and when if I won, bring my winnings back to me. And if my $5 was gone before the end of the day, well, that was it. I was finished betting. One summer, I was about 16, I think. I had a concert that I wanted to go to. And so my mother gave me a ticket and I went to the concert while everyone else went off to lunch. Well, the concert ended and I went to the track. I had my ticket. I went in and I sat down. Nobody else was there yet. So I went down and bought a racing form, went back to my seat. Nobody was there yet. And the first horses on the first race came walking out, parading in front of the grandstand. And there was a horse, and he looked at me, and I knew that horse was gonna win that race. And he was a long shot. Well, I looked around and Nancy, number 4, looked around, Nancy, nobody was coming, nobody was coming. I went down the stairs to the bottom of and looked around and number 4, and nobody came. Oh, so I went to where you go in under the stands to bet, and I looked and I looked and I walked and I paced and 1 minute to post. Oh no, I put my head down and I walked up and I said, first race, number 4 to win. And I shoved my $2 in and they gave me a ticket. I grabbed that ticket in my hand and I ran up to the ticket because the race was just about to start. And I yelled and I screamed and I screamed and I yelled and he yelled and I yelled. And he won. And it came up $42.50. I looked around. I had my ticket. They let me buy it, but would they let me cash it and give me money back? Oh, I didn't think so. I knew I was illegal. So I looked and anxious, and I went down the bottom of the stairs and I looked around and I was anxious but that was money in my hand and I had to get it before the next race. And well, I looked around and went into the edge of where you go in and looked around and I got in line and I kept my head down and I got to the window and I shoved my ticket in at 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 42.50. Next, I grabbed my money, ran out and ran up the stairs, and there was everyone sitting down. Where have you been? I yelled at them. They looked around like, yeah, what's wrong with you? So I told them my story and how exasperated I won. And I showed them how much money I'd won and how I almost lost it all because they didn't show up on time. Well, they all started laughing. My dad laughed and he said, Joyce, they wouldn't have arrested you. No cop was going to pull you out of line. And you didn't need to go and cash in your ticket. That's just your mother and Aunt Doodle. They do that because that's who they are. And when they win, they want their money right away. And I kind of felt kind of sheepish. But you know what? I still love to gamble. I still look the horse in the eye and see if he's ready to win or not. And sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong. But money's different when you win it on a horse race. You got to get down there and get it because that money's important. You never know. There might be an earthquake. Thank you.
Yay. Excellent
nice.
story, Joyce. Really appreciated it. Ed, we got you on mute.
Huh?
Ed's still on mute, so Ed's going to be talking to us in a second. There he goes.
All right. Thank you, Joyce, for that story. And I'm
You're
glad
welcome.
I got to hear it for the second time. It was really nice. Okay, so our next storyteller is Marian Ferrante. She started a group called Adult Weavers down in Antioch. And when I was teaching at Los Medanos College, I met her. And together we started putting on celebrations at the college. And that's when I really got involved with storytelling with adults. So that was a lot of fun. We put on about 14 celebrations there. And then I continued the tradition when I moved to Davis, and she has continued the tradition down in Antioch. So she's told many stories. She's been on the board of the Storytelling Association of California. She's done a lot of work in promoting storytelling. And I'm really interested in hearing her local story, unless he's got something else now. So please welcome Marian Ferrante.
Thank you. Different times, but lately I book, and she wants me to put this particular story in the book. So I have to change it from oral to written, but it's in transition for that. But today I want to tell you, when we think about every place we've been, we hear different stories of maybe monsters. Like, have you ever thought about, is there really a Bigfoot? Is there really all over Contra Costa County wondered, is there really a gigantic snake slithering around in the foothills here, up in the mines? Maybe it is the Fleischacker Zoo. They wanted to stay out of the barn and go timber schoolhouse. And the Lorenzetti said they will not let their children play outside. Well, it was July 25th, it started in 1934, when Anthony Romano just ran breathless into the Antioch News office. And he was reporting, I just came down from the old coal mines where I saw this gigantic snake. It was slithering right across the road. And that one news article launched fear all over our county. They thought there was some gigantic snake, maybe. And then, yes, a man walking just right on the Santa Fe Railroad tracks. He reported to the station there in Pittsburgh that he was walking along and he saw a giant python. And then 2 weeks later, 3 fishing out there at Old River, you know, they said they were startled by this gigantic snake. It was by their boat. The monster would swim and then submerge and then swim again, and then it disappeared. 1 week later, like August 15th, Fujiti, he's a Japanese farmer out in Knightson at the Hotchkiss Ranch. He said, what I saw it with my own eyes. It was a 25-foot reptile. It had black and yellow spots on it. I went out for a shotgun and I went for help, but by the time we got back, we could only find we saw a trail in the tules that was mashed down. And but the fear was growing. Well, Anthony Romano, he was concerned. So he wrote a letter to George Bastani, the superintendent of the Fleischacker Zoo. And Bastani said, well, there's nothing natural, that kind of something going on. Don't you remember that 14 years ago? Why, yeah, the traveling circus. They had this 30-foot python and it escaped when it was leaving Antioch. Remember that? It's possible that it made its way up to the coal mines. And it's possible it's been living in there while eating rats and more. It could satisfy it. And of course it would come down to the river to swim, to have a drink, to refresh itself. Many. Well, after that, the people and the citizens of the area called their reference Amy. On August 22nd, there was a newspaper article, everybody, that the snake had been killed out at quarters from San Francisco, from Reno. They came, but they just trampled down any kind of evidence there was. They that down for a time. Again, he reported he saw a terrifying snake sighting, again out at the Knightson Ranch. At 20 feet away, I saw 4 teeth. I saw foot-long fangs in this multicolored body. Long, and he referred it to the Board of Supervisors. They weren't sure is that in their jurisdiction? They referred it to the district attorney. Well, finally, news reporters from all over, they were reporting, and they went out to see Mr. Lorenzetti, but he said, well, it wasn't me who saw the snake. Why? It was a Japanese farmer. That's who saw it. And by now, George Bastani of the Fleischacker Zoo, he had gotten so many reports from all over the county, he decided he's going to investigate and put an end to all of these sightings. He said it couldn't be native. It's got
Hey, Marion,
crazy
you
stories.
keep coming in and out. Marion, you keep coming in and out of your presentation.
Shags tells me that my internet, and it shows on mine too, that it's unstable.
Yeah. Okay, well,
It's really not working very well. The quality of your stories is not coming across.
yeah, we can't.
Oh,
And I think
It
the more of
breaks.
us that turn off our cameras when she's talking, the better it'll be for her, because her internet's processing the signals to her as well as from her at the same time. The other thing, Marion, are you plugged directly into your router or are you using Wi-Fi? Your computer, is it plugged directly into a router?
yeah. Yeah, it's directly connected.
You might contact your cable company and let them know that your signal keeps dropping. They can perform some tests and maybe do a reset on your
Okay.
router. The other thing is, if you have cell service where you can tether your phone for these sessions, you can use your data plan on your phone, which might be faster than the internet connection you've got. Those
I
are
don't
things-
have an iPhone.
Oh, well, if it's a smartphone or an Android does it too. Otherwise, I really don't know what to suggest.
Well, it sounded like a really interesting story. I want to hear it someday.
Nice attempt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Shall I can summarize, but you say it's still very unstable. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really unstable. Ed, do you have any input on that? You wanna? You're muted. You're muted, Ed. Let me unmute him.
So,
Okay.
Mary, we're just going to go on to the next teller because we really can't follow your story.
Oh,
You come in, you come out, you know, it's so
I've heard
maybe at
that
the
on some.
maybe at the very end when people get out, we'll try and you can tell the story to a few of us and we'll see if it comes through. See
Well, I hope it works because tomorrow I've got Delta word weavers. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead with our next storyteller is Karen Daly, and she is has been with the Toastmasters for 30 years, with our organization for 20 years or so, and she also is been on the board of the Toastmasters, and there's different storytelling organizations that she's a member of with Toastmasters. They have Aesop Stables and a few others. So please welcome Karen Daly. She's on our board with also at the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. You're on.
Hi there. I hope everyone can see me and hear me. This is a story that is a true story about my mother. Being that Mother's Day was last weekend, I thought it was appropriate to tell this story. My mother would have told you she was 5'1", but she probably didn't get any taller than 5 foot. And at her most weight, she was about 110 pounds, but she was a determined little lady. Now, most of you, since you seem to be more at my age, will remember if you didn't have an electric dryer back in the 40s, which usually it was just the well-to-do families that had, you had those wooden stretchers that you pulled out, and they became racks for hanging all your clothes. And on wash day, that's where all the underclothes and pajamas all got hung up. Now, my father said he thought it was very inappropriate because he never could bring anybody home from work because he wasn't sure if the underwear would be hanging around the house. At the same time, Mother would get frustrated because she would have these racks over all of the registers, heating registers that were on the floor. So the house stayed cooler because the clothes were getting dry. So she convinced my father that he could put a clothesline under the house for her. Now, this is in Oakland. There weren't any basements. So under the house literally meant digging under the house. So my father faithfully every night would come home and dig and dig and dig. And by next winter, Mom had a 4-foot wide, 8-foot long, with 2 clotheslines under the house. She was ecstatic. Oh, she was so excited, not having to have clothes hanging all over the house. But every time she went down to that basement to hang up clothes, she would look over and see these piles of dirt. And I mean piles of dirt. Now for us kids, we thought those dirt piles were wonderful. They were our forts. We could hide behind them. We could dig in them. We had a wonderful time with that dirt. But it drove my mother crazy. So I did tell you she was a determined little lady, right? Well, you know, these paper bags that we used to get groceries in, they became not just a grocery bag, they became her brown dirt bags. So every day when she went down, she would, now she's a little lady, she would fill her grocery bags about halfway full with dirt. And back then when you went to the grocery store, you had little stroller baskets that you put your grocery bags in. So we would take grocery bags to the store and go into the back and go kerplunk, kerplunk with 2 full bags of dirt. And we did that because back then you had very small refrigerators. We did that probably about 2 or 3 times a week. But that pile still wasn't going down very fast. So we would go over and visit my sister at her apartment complex. She soon realized she knew when we were coming because she would hear kerplunk, kerplunk, as 2 big bags of dirt were tossed into their apartment garbage. Sometimes, if she really felt good, she might even have 4 bags to dump, but mostly it was always 2. Oh, but that pile just didn't seem to go down. So here came summer. We used to go to Tilden Park. If anybody is from the Bay Area knows Tilden Park is the big park in Oakland. And we had this wonderful picnic spot that we always went with family and friends. Well, Mother got the idea. Hey, it's dirt. I can bring dirt. So we would carry bags of dirt in the car up the hill. Now, if we were meeting people, she didn't want to show them that she was dumping dirt out in the park. So instead, she would open the door and flip the bag over as we're driving up the dirt roads and leave a trail of dirt all the way as we're going up to our picnic spot. But dang, those piles still didn't seem to get down fast enough. And then God looked down and took pity on my mother. On church, they announced the school was going to build a new gymnasium and construction was going to start next week. Hallelujah! Mother had a way to get rid of that dirt. So every day she would go down and fill at least 3, sometimes 4 paper bags full of dirt. And then at night, in the dark of the night, Dad would put those bags into our Red Ryder wagon, mother pulling, with either my brother and I taking turns pushing that wagon over, around the block, down the street to the new construction site, and we would dump our bag of dirt. We did this, I'm sure it must have been about a month that we did this until finally, hallelujah, there was a flat area under our house. But I've come to think of it as an adult, that what did those workers think when they came back every morning and their supervisor came up and said, I thought you cleared out this ditch, and found that it was full again with dirt. It must have been very disappointing. But a determined little lady, of all of 5 foot tall and 110 pounds, got rid of, I don't know how many pounds of dirt, all in this plain garbage bag. Thank you.
Love that. That
was a very fun
funny.
story. Thank you so much.
You
Really
do,
enjoyed that.
you do what you got to do, right?
That's right. So our next storyteller is our semi-technical man who puts these events together for us, Andrew Loffer. And he lives up in the mountains and is a prolific writer. Every week he sends a story out. It's really interesting. So he's got lots of material to work on, and he's been doing that. And so please welcome Andrew Loffer.
Thank you, everybody. I'm unmuted, right? It's good to see you all today. Thank you for letting me tell you a story. The title of my story is called Firefight in Idaho, and that's why I have this hard hat on, because you all know that firefighters wear hard hats. So it was between semesters. During the summer, I got a job with the United States Forest Service as a firefighter, and they stationed me up in Mendocino National Forest at the top of Grizzly Mountain. And so I went there and they did some training and they gave me my uniform. And oh, by the way, that uniform is interesting. You know, it's the yellow shirt and the green pants that you've seen on the news lots of times when you see the firefighters fighting. Well, that material is made of Nomex. And when it gets too close to fire, it turns white. Your green pants will turn white. And that's a clue, man. You got to get out of the way because you're getting too close. You're gonna get burned. So at the top of the mountain, you know, there really wasn't that much to do. We had one fire that got our adrenaline going quite a bit, but for the most part, there wasn't much to do. You see, Mendocino National Forest is the only national forest in California, in the country, that doesn't have a major freeway going through it. So no major freeway, you have less people and less fires, right? So that's great. It was all good. So it made for boring days for a lot of times. Our day basically was get up in the morning, do our physical exercise, come back, have breakfast, and then we would go out and either clear brush or practice fuel breaks, doing what we call fuel breaks or creating a fire line. Now, a fire line, basically, what you do there is you remove all the vegetation from the forest floor and get down to pure dirt, right? Because dirt doesn't burn. And so there's a whole technique on doing that. And the way you have to do it is you get 6 firefighters in a row, and each one of them has a special tool. And one tool is called a Pulaski, and it's like an axe on one side and a scraper on the other side. Another tool is called a McLeod, and it's like a big heavy duty rake on one side, and flip it over, it's like a big hoe on the other side. And then of course there's the shovel, and there's a few other things. So when you're creating this fire line, what you have to do, you get 6 in a row, and the first guy takes the Pulaski and he scrapes the ground once or twice, okay? And then he moves to the side. And then the next person comes to that same spot and scrapes the ground twice again, 2 or 3 times again, moves to the side, depending on what tool he has. The next person, same thing. So that one spot gets scraped down to the dirt by six firefighters. So by the time the sixth person comes by, you've got a good path that's 3 or 4 feet long of pure dirt, right? So it's very effective, and it stops the fire cold unless there's a lot of wind, and that's a whole nother problem. So that essentially was my training. Oh, and then we did have a fire. Remember I told you about the fire? And it was fairly close to the road, and our truck had a little water in it, and so I got to take the hose out, and I'm squirting the fire down. The other guys have their tools, and I'm just kind of like squirting the fire. It's, you know, putting water on it. It's going out. But the fire chief got real mad at me, and he takes the hose, and he goes, "Don't do it like that. You got to do it like this." And he brings the hose tip about that far from the ground, and he's going along the ground, and he's basically running along the edge of the fire, putting the fire out right on the edge. It's like, I was really taken aback. It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. Well, when you think about it, you do have to go really fast when it comes to these fires, because otherwise the whole forest goes up in an instant. So you just got to move. Anytime you're working in the forest fire, you got to move really fast. So that was the training I had for the firefight in Idaho. And a couple weeks later, we're still at the top of Grizzly Mountain. 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I am sound asleep. And all of a sudden over the radio, bump, 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 Grizzly Mountain Fire Crew down to Cobolo right now. Cobolo is a town 30 miles away. That's where our headquarters were. So we, you know, in 5 minutes, we had our rucksacks going, we threw them in the truck, and we're down there in Cobolo in 45 minutes or so. Shortly after that, a big airplane comes into Cobolo, big 4-engine prop airplane, takes us up to Idaho, and then to Boise. And then from Boise, we took a helicopter up to the northern Idaho area where it was all primitive forest, and the Snake River ran through that. And so our camp was at the bottom by the river, and we got there too late to go up to the mountain that day. So what we did was we went to the camp, we went to our supply place, got our belts, a little quart of water, our little fire blanket. And that's a fire blanket you put over yourself. If you're getting overwhelmed by the fire, hopefully it'll save your life. And then I got my shovel, and they gave us a sleeping bag. So it was too late to go up that night, and we were getting ready for bed. And I'm telling you that it was so incredible. The entire mountainside, the entire expanse was on fire. And it was pitch black out, but all you can see are these flames going up and these glowing pieces of, you know, coal and embers, and it was really amazing, and it was beautiful, but it was ominous at the same time, because the next morning, that's where we were going. So we get flown up to the top of the mountain the next morning, and our job was to make a fire line all the way down the mountain along the fire. So that's fine, and we're out there working, and I got a crew above me, and there's a crew below us, so we're in the middle. And we are right on that fire line. I mean, right there. And that fire is just raging. It's raging. There's branches falling. There's trees falling. There's embers and ashes flying all over the place. And the wind going into the fire, it's sucking oxygen in. It was so loud. It was like 3 trains, you know, driving right by your house. It was really incredible. So we're like working like crazy. We're cutting that fire line, you know, cut, step, cut, step, cut, step. I mean, we're working as hard as we can. Well, the thing was, the guys above us were doing the same thing. And so they're cutting and they're loosing all these rocks and boulders. So these rocks and boulders, and it was very steep terrain, right? These rocks and boulders are coming down, and they're coming by us, and it was dangerous. And finally I saw a rock was coming down, and I hit it with my shovel and knocked it to the ground. I got a commendation for that, for protecting the crew below us. So we're working and working and working. And then the crew down below, who had gotten there first, they were taking a breather. They were tired. So I was watching them, and they're talking to each other, you know, they're laughing, they're having a good time, they're really animated, you know, taking a breather. And then all of a sudden, deep in the fire, we hear this big crack. The base of a tree had broken, and this big, massive tree fell into the fire, and when it hit the ground, it just shattered. And that tree, a 20-foot log from the trunk, broke off of that tree. And it was at least 4 or 5 feet wide. And it was completely enveloped with flames. And that thing was rolling down the mountain. I mean, very steep, rolling, and momentum was building every second. And it was crashing over trees, and it's going through bushes, and it was hitting big boulders and bouncing up in the air and coming back down, crashing and just crashing through. it was going right for the crew at the bottom who were taking a breather. So we're yelling at them. We're going, hey, hey! They don't hear us. It's too loud. They're not hearing us at all. Hey! And they're just, going like this, totally oblivious. And so I have this whistle and I go, like that, and it pierced the air just enough to get their attention. And they looked up at me, or at us, and we pointed at the log, and then they scrambled out of the way just in time. I mean, just in time. That log went right over where they were standing. I mean, it was just intense. They could have lost, they probably would have lost their lives had we not done that. So it's like, man, I'm telling you. The end of that day, I'm back down to the river, and I'm sitting there. I'm pretty reflective, right? I'm going, geez, I almost got killed up there. I almost got burned. I almost got nailed by boulders. I saved 6 people's lives. I'm just like, what the heck am I doing here, man? And so after a little pep talk from my boss, well, the next day we're back up on the hill. The next 2 or 3 days, actually. It took us a while to get it out. And then the last day, we're in what we call the mop-up phase. And that's when the fire's basically out, but there's just these little smoldering spots all over the place. And so you go up there and you put some water on them, you try to get them out. Well, me and 3 other guys, we were on the edge of the burn. And one of our buddies from Mendocino, his name was Martin, he was deep into the burn. And he had a chainsaw, and he was going out there looking for fires at the base of these trees. So the idea is those fires are often undetected, and they burn and burn, and soon enough you hear a crack because they work on the tree, and the tree falls over either onto somebody or starts on the fire or something. So that was his job. So we're working, and all of a sudden we hear this big crack up the hill. And that tree is going like this, and Martin's right here. It's going to go right on top of Martin. And so we're screaming at him. He didn't see where it was. He didn't know where it was coming from. We're like, run, Martin, run! And he drops his chainsaw and he starts running down the hill. And it's, again, real steep, right? So he's leaping over burnt logs, and he's leaping over boulders and over bushes. And we're going, run, Martin, run! And the dang thing, it falls on the ground. Poof! Ashes, the plume of ashes and everything, it blocks our view for a minute. And then it clears enough, and we see Martin at the end of the tree just huffing and puffing, and we're going, yeah, Martin, he made it. It's our brother, right? He made it. Well, we all made it. We made it back home. We had some scratches and everything, but it was a hell of an experience, and we just couldn't wait for the next fire and the next adrenaline rush. Thank you. Thank you.
Adrenaline, yeah. What, you had some good adrenaline going in that story. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I can think of some other ways that I would rather my adrenaline going.
Yeah, I did.
So did you remain a volunteer firefighter? Or?
No, I didn't. I basically stopped doing it after that summer. I was going to go back the next year, but then I got a job offer at the university. So,
well, as you're telling your story, I mean, it makes me more aware of what firefighters are really going through, because we hear all about them, but we've never, unless you had an experience like you or heard something like you're saying, you think it's dangerous, but you don't really have a sense of it.
Oh yeah, it's
hear it firsthand.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so great story, and now we're at our last teller. This is David Tarvin, and Dave has been telling with us with the guild for around 3 years or so, and he has been a counselor in Hawaii. He's worked with young kids. He's heard all kinds of stories, and he's currently working with seniors at different programs, except for the last month or so, to hear their stories and help them develop their own storytelling techniques. And also worked as a docent at the Railroad Museum. And he's got lots of interesting historical stories and all kinds of other stories. And he's also an improv comedy man here. So please welcome Dave Tarvin out in the middle of the forest somewhere.
Well, hey, everybody. Happy to be
Hey.
here. And I'm telling a true story today. I actually, the story's about my grandmother. And I don't think I've ever told it in this kind of a venue before. I usually tell it in senior centers And it is actually a very personal story. This is a true story. And it begins like this. It actually begins in a car. My mother's brand new 1961 blue Cadillac. And we were driving across the San Fernando Valley to my grandmother's house. And suddenly I had this lurching in my stomach. I don't know what that was. I'm pretty sure that it wasn't car sickness. I don't get motion sickness. Might have been that Chinese lunch. I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, it was just, I suddenly, it went from like a small irritation into this huge thing. And I knew I was going to throw up. I was going to throw up right there. And my mother, she knew that too. And she turned to me and that finger came out and she waved it at me. And she said, "Don't you throw up in that car." She said, "This is a brand new Cadillac. Don't you throw up in that car." And I said, "Mom, pull over, pull over." And I started moaning. She said, "You're almost at your grandma's house." And it wasn't like, but 2 minutes later, we pulled up right in front of my grandmother's house. And I looked up and there was my grandmother in the doorway. I threw open that door and I started to run. And I thought I could make it into the bathroom. And I ran right past my grandmother. She saw me coming. She just turned to the side. And as I ran down the hallway, I didn't make it. I dropped to my knees, writhing in pain, and I threw up all over the floor. And I began to cry and to sob. My grandmother rushed over to me and she dropped down on her knees and she scooped me up in her arms and she said, "Davy, it's okay, it's okay." And I sobbed and I sobbed and I cried and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And my mother walked in and that finger came out and she looked down at me and my grandmother looked up at her and that finger came out. But she never said a word. She just took that finger and she did that. My mother stood there silent. My grandmother continued to talk to me and I continued to sob and say, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And she kept consoling me. She said, "It's okay, Davy. It's easy to clean up. It's fine, Davy." And she kept calling me Davy. And she kept saying, "It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And everything will be all right." And so finally I started to calm down. The sobbing subsided. I felt calmer. And she said something and she said, "Davy, it's okay." And I said, "Grandma, why do you keep calling me Davy? That's not my name. My name is David. I'm named after King David in the Bible. It's David, not Davy." And my grandmother looked deep into my eyes. She had this little smile on her face. She said, "No." She said, "To me, you are Davy. You are named after the great Appalachian hero, the Kentucky hero, the Southern country hero, Davy Crockett. And that's why I call you Davy. Because you are just like him. You are strong. You are courageous. You are smart. You are capable. And when you grow up, you will be a great man, just like Davy Crockett." And right then, I just let go of all that pain that I was in at the moment. I stood up, cleaned myself off. I said, "Excuse me, Grandma," and I walked to the bathroom and cleaned myself up. And as if by some miracle, when I came out, the hallway was clean and cleared. And I gave my grandmother a hug. And she said to me, "Don't ever forget that, Davy." And I never did, and I never will. Even to this day, even at my advanced age, at those times when I become just a little frightened or a little worried, I think back upon my grandmother and I think about what she said about being just who I am and being Davy. Thank you.
Very nice.
Wonderful story, Dave. Wonderful.
All right. Well, that wraps up our storytellers. Thank you, Dave. I like your little outdoor environment there with the wind blowing and everything.
Actually, I kind of like it too. This turned out actually to be a pretty good deal. I'm setting up doing some Zoom stuff with seniors. I think I'm gonna do it right here. I'm in the middle of a parking lot just outside of Old Town Auburn, right across from the law library. I'm using their Wi-Fi. I don't think they liked it. They told me to go to McDonald's. I said, no, I'm going to a parking lot.
Okay, well, what we're going to do now is we're definitely ending the meeting, but if all the storytellers would at least stay on, and if anyone else has a comment about the stories, you can definitely share that, any of the listeners, if you want to. Especially if, you know, they had difficulty hearing something or whatever. We're trying to make sure we work out all the bugs. And so let's just have a little wrap up right now. I'll start and make a few comments just about the ability, at least from my end, to be able to hear and see and everything. Linda, as a first teller, I could hear you really well. We could see you well. You had a nice background and all that. The one thing it looked like, though, you were looking up, and you were kind of at a little angle, so you weren't looking at us. So that was one thing for me. Yeah. And with Dave, I think if you lowered it just a little bit more, we'd see more of your gestures. And I see Brenda's on there. Brenda, did you have something you wanted to say? Brenda? See your picture there. Did you want to comment? Oh, hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Oh, it's Mark.
Hey, Ed.
Hey.
Brenda's video is turned off, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right. And for Karen, I think the way you had it positioned worked really well. We could see you well, your gestures, at least, you know, from my perspective. We could, where you were standing, you know, it seemed to work really well as far as that presentation went. And same for Joyce. Joyce seems, it worked really well for her last time, and it seemed to work pretty well this time with her background and all that. And
Yes.
and Andrew's, I think, is really great positioning, because you can see everything. You can see his gestures and how, you know, he said he's sitting on a stool. He told me that.
Yeah,
before.
I'm sitting on a bar stool and I have the computer up at eye level almost.
Yeah.
It's far enough away to where I can. So.
And then, of course, we had difficulty with Marion, so we're going to try and work out some of those bugs here at the end, because you just kept coming in and out, so we really couldn't follow your
Yeah,
story.
it's really choppy.
I do have a picture that goes with my story. I can show you the snake. You want to see
Awesome.
that?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Wow.
Woo!
Oh, wow.
I don't see it yet.
Oh, my.
No, we don't see it.
We don't see it.
You have to talk, Marion, so you go full screen.
Oh, I can see it.
Somebody can see
Oh.
it.
There
It is. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Oh, me.
Woo.
So
Holy
thing
moly.
is, you have to hear the story
Right.
that goes with this. So
Yes.
the man who captured it, but you got to hear the story. And no, we are on Wi-Fi. I'm not on the direct router. We are on a Wi-Fi, and it's upstairs, so it's real close, the source.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we don't know what else to try.
Yeah,
I'm concerned
Shay?
because I have word weavers tomorrow, so I'm concerned
Well,
that
now
Are you-
you're
are you on-
fine,
Are you
though.
on a notebook or a desktop?
I have a desktop computer here. No, not a
so
desk, a full computer here.
so it's not so easy to just connect. connect it. I'd say a long cat 5 and snake it through the ducts. But you don't have time for tomorrow.
That's not going to happen.
What
So
we'll do
Mary, you
tomorrow-
ought to have like,
what I could do tomorrow is just stop everybody's video but yours when you're presenting.
We'll see
okay.
how it works, except I'm supposed to be the host.
I'll
So,
be there and co-hosting, not to
yeah, that'll be great.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was
worry.
gonna
I'll
say,
get there early and then you can co-host. So either way,
yeah,
either
yeah,
way.
because that's what Andrew and I are doing. Andrew hosts, and then he puts me on as a co-host. And if something goes wrong with one of us, then the other one can take over.
And
Yeah,
Ed, for
I saw
you-
that. That worked out well.
Ed,
So
for you, the lighting behind you, because it's daylight, it hides your face. It shadows half your face. So if you could not
I
have so
can
much
turn on that
light,
lamp.
not have such bright light behind you.
I have this lamp.
No, not Marion. I'm talking about Ed Lewis.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, spaghetti.
Somebody told me that and I forgot. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that. So anyone else have any other comments for the other tellers about how it went or the lighting or some whatever? Anyone have any?
Ed, during when Marion was working, it came on the screen. It might help if we checked out of chat, and the chat at the bottom is lit, but I didn't know how to get out of it, and I was afraid to do it in the middle because I was afraid I'd do something to Marion's story. So
No, the chat is unique to you. The chat view is unique to you. So those are messages from me about her internet connection. They'll pop up at the bottom of your screen, but you can scroll down, or whatever device you're on, somehow you need to access your own chat window, depending on the device you're using. For every device, it's different. So when you see chat, that means there's a message waiting for you. Go take a look at it. You won't interrupt anything Marion's doing. She doesn't see a thing you're doing when you're checking chat.
Okay.
Checking chat. Boy, that's alliterative.
Also,
Joy?
you also suggested that he turn off the video, Shag. I don't know if that's would work or not. That's why I turned mine off for a bit.
Yeah, and tomorrow, as I said, for Marion, I will turn off everybody's video because I'll be hosting or co-hosting with that privilege.
So how can you do that for everybody?
I can't do it for everybody at once. I can mute everybody at once, but I can go down individually to more, and I can stop your video. Boom, look, you're not there anymore. You're just Eddie.
Oh, okay. Just the
All right,
picture.
so now, yeah, so now I'll go back and I can ask you to start your video again.
Oh, okay.
And I would do that if I noticed that you might have stood up and bent over and were scratching places that people shouldn't see.
So is that a
Joy?
good idea? We should all
Yes.
stop our video?
I would say with Marion, or anytime you see it getting choppy, it could be everybody's got a different internet connection, a different way to, and different people that are sharing that whole cable line that carries what's called bandwidth. So Zoom will tell you when you're experiencing low bandwidth. It has nothing to do with anybody else. I get that now and then, and there's not much I can do in my neighborhood except switch over tethering to my phone. And that uses up my unlimited time gets used up. Go figure. And that's what I suggest. Or as David found, you go someplace where you could suck off broadband from somebody else. Free Wi-Fi, local Wi-Fi.
Libraries are pretty good for that.
You could park outside of Starbucks, although they might have turned off their internet.
Anyway, Joyce, I just want to tell you, you look wonderful. The lighting, whatever lighting you have there is perfect. But I would just like you to move over a little more so I could see your pretty flowers, because we just see a tip of something. So just move yours there. Yeah, move it over a little more so we can see your pretty flower arrangement too. There
Can you
you
see
go.
it?
Yeah, but now we can't see you, so you got to move. There you go.
Fix that.
It's
There you go.
adorable.
Double adjusting things. I look at it and I think, oh, I should move to the left, and it's really I should move to the right kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
looking in a mirror.
I know.
But
we
your
see a mirror
lighting is
image.
perfect. Where do you have your light? Because there's no dark spots or anything with you. So where's
Okay,
the light located?
I'm sitting at the dining room table and my 3 lights over my dining room table are in front of me. My one overhead
Okay.
light is shining down, is behind me.
Okay. Well, that's perfect. I'll tell you, just perfect.
Because you don't get a reflection off your glasses. I know Marion was dealing with that yesterday.
Well, how
Yeah,
about,
my glasses are supposed to be non-reflective.
Oh, maybe that's
I
the
mean,
trick.
I have a coating on them or something.
I did go in and change my settings to make my entire screen more dim, and that has helped. They're not at all as reflective as they were previously.
Oh, good.
Well, you know what? And now you're coming across pretty clearly, Marion.
Yeah. I was just saying, yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Well,
Oh, no, now she just froze again.
You jinxed her. You jinxed her.
Yes, I did.
oh my gosh.
so was anybody, when you were listening to people, was besides Marion, with the rest of us, was there any lag time? Was there anyone
Yes.
talking too quickly?
I got it on Ed. I got it on Andrew.
You got
Now
what?
then.
Yeah, Ed, you were fading in and out a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, I don't, was
Yes.
I fading in and out?
No, not for me.
No, Ed was the only one, Ed and Marion.
So it would fade out, kind of like, I mean,
The volume would go way low for a minute and then,
Yeah.
then it would come back up.
huh,
But
interesting.
we could
You're
hear
a
you.
little garbled.
Linda was perfect. You could hear everything she was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides, you have wonderful gestures too, Linda.
Thank you.
I enjoyed watching you and hearing you at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And Andy, I love your stories, and you're very animated, and how you are situated there really lets you give the full gestures and animation. So I really enjoyed your story.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Appreciate it. I was very conscious, trying my best not to say
You did well.
Ed, if you come across any cottonmouth that like Jameson, I'll come canoeing with you.
Oh, great. Okay.
I'm a Jameson girl.
Lovely.
Come on,
Yeah,
invite me.
I go along with you, Linda.
If you're looking for commentary from a Toastmaster, former Toastmaster who actually just visited Diablo 598 after being away for about 10 years, 8 years, I noticed in all the speakers a lot of run-on sentences, beginning with ands and buts and ands and buts.
We had some, or we,
I'm a
My
master
favorite.
evaluator, and I'm really
Yeah.
picky about that stuff. So, see, I just started with so. Bad boy.
That's my, yeah, that's my bad one. Yep.
will you say that one more time, Jack? I didn't quite get it.
Yeah.
There were a lot of run-on sentences
Okay.
where you and, where you could just pause and then begin. He then said,
Good.
Ooh.
Good, very good. I'll use that.
but
Yeah.
that's why there's this recording.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Go back and watch your own video. Hopefully,
Yes,
I was able to
thank
spotlight
you.
everybody. I don't remember if I spotlighted. There was somebody who it ended up being pinned, not spotlighted. I'm not sure. It might have been Andrew.
What does that mean?
It means that as one of the hosts, I can determine what's picked up by the video recording. Your own, hopefully, when I hit spotlight, this present speaker was big center screen for you.
Yes,
It was? Okay.
yes.
That's what spotlight is. Now,
Yeah, that was great.
if nobody is being spotlighted, you can select a person by going to their photo and looking at the 3-dot blue square there, and you can pin them so they're always on your screen. So if there's this little hot babe, you could just put her up there and watch everything she does. And
So, are you going to send us, all of us, the recording, or to somebody, and we'll
it'll
send it
be up
out?
on the cloud for a while. we're paying for some cloud storage, but I'm not going to keep it there forever.
How do I
Well,
acquire
actually,
that?
I'll let you know it's there. There's a link and you can download it to your own
Jack,
computer.
I have a question. I'm on a Mac,
hmm
and I just noticed when we were talking about recording, I was looking along, and I have a little thing up here. It says recording, and I notice that it's blinking red. Has it been recording this whole time?
Yes, since the beginning
Yes.
of the meeting.
Oh, okay. But now what do I do to save it?
You don't worry about that. It'll save on my end and I'll let you know where to retrieve it.
Okay.
All right.
So I actually recorded myself this morning, so I've got mine up. I'm going to put it up on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
We have
Whopper.
two visitors from South Bay. Lori Pines has joined us. And a while ago, there's Miss Lori Pines, and Joy Swift was on for a time.
Oh,
Because
yeah, I saw
I-
Joyce. That's good.
Yeah. Fabulous.
I invited them on, so they did come.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's
Anybody who wants
it's good
to
to
come
see
to Word
all my
Weavers?
buddies from the festival.
Absolutely. Anybody who wants to come to Word Weavers tomorrow, the rest of you are from Sacramento.
Well, here,
Ask
let-
it for the
I'm going to
link.
put in the chat room the meeting number and password, okay? Just give me a second.
For Marion's?
For Marion's, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's 2:00 tomorrow, and our feature stories, of which I have 5 tellers, are it's a structure of fortunately, unfortunately. Some people call it good news, bad news stories. I've got 5 of those. Craig Harrison has joined on to my master list. So I've got 5 people, and it's
Great.
just going to be fun.
Cool.
After that, it'll be
Craig is
open, and I
Craig's
don't know how
outstanding.
much time will be left.
That'd be
Craig
great.
just did a presentation for our online Rotary Club, the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, because Rotary and Toastmasters have formed a partnership to get Rotarians to be better
Yes.
speakers and for Toastmasters to have opportunities to take their leadership skills out into the community.
Oh,
As in the
nice.
club. We
Win-win.
did a really nice job. Yeah, we did 2 table topics, 1-minute table topics. It was fun. And that's what prompted me to go back to 598 for a meeting on Zoom because I don't like driving at night.
Yeah, I know. The Zoom's pretty good. It's got some real benefits to it.
And Ashley Harkness, I don't know if I'm sure if you're a Toastmaster, you know Ashley. Ashley was the Toastmaster. So it was really good to be back. And I just, as a guest, I jumped in and did an evaluation. There were actually 2 evaluations for the same speaker. So they could see it from somebody who hasn't done it from a while and somebody who was new to the club. And that was very fun and very informative and educational for everyone.
Yeah. Which club did you visit? Which club did you visit?
598 Concord.
Oh, in Concord.
Yeah, Diablo 598.
Okay. I was gonna say, because both of my Toastmaster meetings here in Sacramento, we're doing Zoom meetings.
It was
I
nice.
have a question. Does anybody know who the Brenda is that checked on?
It's me, Joyce.
A friend of, it's Mark, right? Friend of Mark and Linda?
Brenda?
No,
I don't
Joyce
know a
Orman.
friend. I don't know a Brenda. You talking
That's-
about Mark? Okay.
I invited Brenda Golubsky when she lives in Texas, and I was wondering if by chance it's Brenda, because all I see is her first name.
Well, Brenda, what's your last name?
Golubsky.
There you go.
Oh,
Welcome
She's
to
from Waco,
California.
Texas.
hey, very nice.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
that's it.
Okay, well, everyone, unless people want to have more things to say, the next month, you know, it's the same 3rd Saturday, and the theme is Good Old Summer. Carrie Chacon has figured out that theme, but as always, you can have a story that doesn't fit the theme if you've got something you really want to work on. So if any of you want to tell a story, just email me and say, okay, I'm on, and give me a time.
Can we tell 2 months in a row?
Or, you know, and we're going to pass it around, see if we
Oh,
get other people
sure.
interested too.
Sure, Linda.
Oh, right. Okay, Karen, you said yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. This is my second time. Good
Well,
to
you
see
know-
you, Linda.
It was good to be here. I would say that I would sign up, and then if you had enough, I would not, so not to do 2 months in a row, but I could be available. How about that?
Great. Okay.
That way you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah,
yes,
Brad.
All
you can
right,
use more
so-
time.
So, Andrew, are you interested again?
Yeah, I'm sure I could manage.
Yeah. And Karen, you said yes? You
Yes.
said yes? Okay.
Yes.
So everyone, Dave?
I'm a
imagine
Joy.
that?
This is Joyce. I'm a yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, so we have a lineup. And again, this is in place of our meeting. So the idea is, you know, that's what we do at our meetings. Anyone who wants to can tell. So, but I'll try and get a
Yep.
couple other people involved and
Mark,
maybe
that
a
means
couple
you
others.
could tell too.
Thank
And
you.
where's Mark?
I
Hey,
feel
Mark.
like I feel like I should introduce myself. I know about half of you.
Yeah.
This is Mark Berry. I'm a member of the Foothill Storytelling Guild up in Auburn by Dave Tarvin. So, hey, this is my first ever Zoom experience in my life. So
Yes.
I can't
Hey.
think
Hey,
I can't think of better people to enjoy
Mark, you
it
better
with.
tell next time.
Now, here's the
Okay.
thing, SAC, the group that owns this room that we rent the room that we're all using. You're one of 5 swaps now that are meeting on Zoom.
cool.
If you go on to our website, storysac, STORYSAC.org, I'll put that in there. You'll see all the places that are meeting.
Cool.
Great.
STORYSAC.org. If you want to go, I have to attend because I'm making sure everything runs well and doesn't screw up for the first couple months until they get
You're doing
somebody
a good job.
Luddite to do it. And it's really so much fun to just go to 5 story swaps a month.
Yes, and I want to thank you for making this available. I wouldn't know how to do it technically, so
Yeah.
thank you guys that do know how.
Welcome.
Yeah. Mark, just to let you know, your lighting is really good too. And so we can see you clearly and hear you clearly.
I just
Oh,
figured that out during this call.
You
Now,
need,
one thing,
Mark,
Karen,
Mark, you
Shag,
need
in the
lighting
chat,
for both
you
sides
got
of your
the wrong
face.
time.
That was more than one. Joyce? What
Yes.
did you say?
You need some lighting on, I don't know if it's left or right. It's the opposite side that's lit. But yeah,
Is
the other
moving at the
side.
wrong
Yeah,
time?
this side
Yeah.
over here.
I'll work on that. The windows over here, that's my natural light, so.
Okay, it's this opposite side from the natural. You need a little bit of light to fill in.
Thank you, Joyce. This is my dramatic stage lighting.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those ghost light? What you don't want is a flashlight underneath.
I'll get that for next time.
so
You're the
Mark,
phantom of the storyteller.
Marion, did you say that was the wrong time?
Yeah, I'm 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, 2 o'clock tomorrow. Okay.
And see, it's how it says third Sunday.
Two.
It's going to switch. I know it is tomorrow, but after that, it goes back to the second Sunday. But it's going to be 2 o'clock always
Okay. 2 o'clock.
tomorrow.
I probably have to fix it in my saved note. Okay, 2 o'clock, and then when I
And from
change it
now
again,
on,
then
it'll be
all
the
right, 2
second
o'clock.
Sunday, 2 to 4.
Okay.
I sent you an email about that.
I know, but I forgot to change it in this thing that I've got.
There's
all
too
these
many
saved in a list.
places,
Sorry.
Too
And then it's going to go
notes.
back to the second Sunday.
too many
That's fine.
places with notes.
Ed, could you forward Marion's information to me so I can look in tomorrow?
sure.
Thank you.
Well, and Marion can do it too, right?
It's in the chat too.
We're not-
You have access to
I
the
can, but
chat.
I don't have like
Oh, okay.
everybody's
I'll send it.
email.
I'll send it. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see
Mark, you're
chat.
going to tell for us next time?
Hey, I can put this on the screen. Hang on a second. Let me just copy it and fix it. And
So
I'll-
Mark, you want to be a storyteller for us next time?
Probably. I'll talk to you in between.
Okay.
I don't see a button that says chat.
It's coming up
On the
right
bottom.
now.
Oh dear.
It's on the bottom of your screen. You got to put your cursor down there.
Okay.
Do you see it, Mark?
No, somehow I lost that page. I don't know what I'm
It's
doing.
I'm sharing screen now. So if you go back to the meeting, you should be seeing something I'm sharing on the screen that has
I
Tomorrow
believe
we
you.
should-
the
Let me
meeting
see.
ID, the
for
password.
Tomorrow, we should just
I
say
don't know where I went.
May
It's somewhere.
17. Just May 17 for tomorrow.
After that, it's the second Sunday, right?
Yeah.
890-9453.
Oh, there it is.
53
Thank you. Now I see
It's
it.
Mother's Day.
94
We changed it.
629-499.
Oh,
629.
good
Well,
idea.
and if somebody's just copying it letter by letter, it sometimes doesn't work. It sometimes has to have cut and paste. You got to try it out.
629-499. Story sack.
Yeah. hmm
Mark, I will also send you the email that Marion sent me.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it very much. That
Sure.
sounds great. I want to be a part of
Everybody have
that.
that?
Good, Mark. Happy to have you tomorrow.
And Miriam, I had one
Yes.
question about tomorrow.
Yes.
Do you want us to tell the stories or we're reading these? Fortunately,
Ed.
unfortunately.
And did you know you volunteered?
Yeah. No,
You're the,
I have a story.
Okay, you're the third storyteller.
So do you want us to read these stories or are we just?
Well, tell them if you know them, tell them.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was just trying to tell people, like, I have to read mine because I got it from somebody else and it's just very wordy, but it's an example of that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, unfortunately,
Book,
structure
children's book.
that I
Okay.
want people to see because it's fun to see it. And
Yeah.
there's going to be so many 5 examples of it tomorrow that it prompts you as storytellers to write your own. I actually already wrote my own about redoing the kitchen. Let's see.
Cool.
Redoing the kitchen led to a cracked front door. Who knew?
Yeah.
That's because thing after thing after thing happened, like, oh my gosh, and in the middle of the front door falls down. What does that have to do with the kitchen? You'd have to hear the story. I'm not
Right.
telling that one yet. Tomorrow.
Cool.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I'm
All
going to
right.
check out, guys.
All righty.
See you all later. Thank you very much. I learned something every week from you all, so I appreciate
Yeah, me too.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, thank you.
It was fun. Thank you very much.
it. Okay, so I've got to go back in. Shaq, I got to go back in and to cancel out, right?
Yeah, somebody does. We have to remember that.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Andrew, I'm leaving. I don't have to do
Bye.
anything, right?
Bye, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.